Ali is struggling to find a job after being made redundant last year. He's one of many victims of Lebanon's financial crisis. Worried for his future, he's been taking part in anti-government demonstrations.
The government needs to put its hand in our hand. It has to look after us. Enough theft and corruption. We just want to live.
The biggest challenge facing Lebanon's new government is its near-collapsing economy. It's keen to ratify as soon as possible the 2020 fiscal budget agreed upon by former Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri's government last year. Lebanon is one of the most indebted countries in the world, with a public debt burden of 150% of its gross domestic product, or GDP. It projects a deficit of 7.4% of its GDP, far larger than the 0.6% originally planned. This year's budget is $10.4 billion. It plans to cut government spending by $666 million. Member of the Finance and Budget Committee, AOUN, says the budget focuses on reducing government expenses and improving its deficit.
We will have to address the debt, the restructuring of the debt in a way or another. We'll have to go into ending the deficit of the electricity and go for an international help in order to secure some liquidity.
While the vote is due to go ahead, opposition members say it's unconstitutional.
There are a lot of violations. This new government has no right to adopt the budget before it gets a vote of confidence in Parliament.
But the government says the budget set last year is binding and it must push ahead with it quickly to save time and money. Not everyone believes, though, that last year's budget plan will work with the current situation in the country.
I look at it as being a very theoretical budget. Why theoretical? Because it's registering an expected excess, yani total receipts exceeding the total expenditures, which is not very realistic, which is not acceptable.
Last week, newly appointed Finance Minister Ghazi Wazni set a priority to secure $4 to $5 billion of soft loans from international donors to buy wheat, fuel and medication.
The budget is the first symbolic, practical step. It's both symbolic and practical, but there have to be other steps after that.
Lebanon has a lack of foreign currency and it imports at least 80% of its needs. Since October, demonstrators have been calling for sweeping reforms to deal with the crippling economic crisis and widespread corruption.
Protesters on the street say that this year's delayed budget is a legacy of the previous government. And yet, despite some amendments made to it in December, it's still not clear whether it will tackle the economic reforms that both they and the international community have been demanding. Sara, Khairat, Beirut, Al Jazeera.